How many shrimps do you have to eat before you make your skin turn pink? Eat too much and you'll get sick. Shrimps are pretty rich.
During the Japanese Heian period, around 1,000 years ago, a samurai was married to a beautiful woman. She was the object of everyone's affection, and she knew it. She would walk around town and ask those who stared, "Am I pretty?" The samurai was not happy with the attention she was eliciting, and when he discovered she was being unfaithful, he wanted her to pay. One day, armed with a knife, he attacked her. He pressed the blade into her cheek and slit her mouth ear to ear, leaving her with a bloody, twisted grin.
Who will think you're beautiful now?
Soon after, she died and returned to Earth as an angry spirit named Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. In the late 1970s, a countrywide panic broke out after numerous people claimed to have encountered Kuchisake Onna. More police officers were assigned to night duty. Students were required to walk home in pairs after school. People took extra precautions to avoid this vengeful spirit, because any encounter would be deadly. If you are walking alone, she will appear around a corner, wearing a trench coat and a surgical mask. In Japan, her attire would not seem out of the ordinary, since it was common for people to wear such masks to prevent the spread of germs. You will assume she is just an ordinary woman. Then, she will approach you and ask, "Am I pretty?" If you say, "No," she will pull out her long pair of scissors and kill you on the spot. And if you say, "Yes," she will bring her face closer and peel back her mask to reveal her disfigured mouth. "Am I pretty now?" No matter how you respond afterwards, your fate will remain the same. However, a few school children discovered a way to trick Kuchisake Onna. When she asks her question, responding with an ambiguous "so-so" would confuse her long enough for you to make your escape. Do you dare to try your luck? Beware the wrath of Kuchisake Onna.
When I was 8 years old. My grandparents were inside the house and I was playing by myself outside in the backyard. I heard a strange sound. I didn't know what it was, and it was hard to figure out where it was coming from. I was looking around, searching for the source of the noise, when I noticed something on top of the tall hedges that enclosed the backyard. It was a straw hat. It wasn't resting on the hedge, it was behind it. That's where the sound was coming from. Then the hat began to move. It stopped at a small gap in the hedge, and I could see a face peering through. It was a woman, but the hedges were high, almost 8 feet tall. I was surprised at how tall the woman was. I wondered if she was wearing stilts or some sort of huge high-heeled shoes. Then, a split second later, she walked off and the strange noise disappeared with her, fading into the distance. Confused, I got up and ran back into the house. My grandparents were in the kitchen drinking tea. I sat down at the table and told my grandparents what I had seen. They weren't really paying attention to me until I mentioned that distinctive sound. They both froze. Grandma's eyes grew wide and she covered her mouth with her hand. Grandpa's face became very serious and he grabbed me by the arm. "This is very important," he said, very intensely. "How tall was she?" As tall as the garden hedge? Where was she standing? When did this happen? What did you do? Did she see you? I tried to answer all his questions as best as I could. He rushed out to the hallway and made a phone call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but after he hung up, he walked out the door. Grandma, what's going on? There's something dangerous abducting children in this area, she said. We call it Hachishaku-sama. It takes on the appearance of an extremely tall woman and says, in a deep voice. A long time ago, it was captured by monks and they managed to confine it in a ruined building on the outskirts of the village. They trapped it using 4 jizo, small religious statues that they placed at the north, south, east, and west of the ruins so that it could not escape. But somehow, it did. The last time it appeared was 15 years ago. My grandmother said that anyone who saw it was destined to die within a few days. It all sounded so crazy. I wasn't sure what to believe. Just then, my grandpa came back, but with an old woman who called herself Keisan. They took me upstairs to my bedroom and began covering the windows with newspaper, with ancient runes written all over them. Keisan placed small bowls of salt in all 4 corners of the room and a small Buddha figure in the center.
Soon the sun will be setting, so listen carefully. You must stay in this room until 7:30 tomorrow morning. Do not open this door for any reason.
She placed a bucket in my hands.
Not even to use the restroom.
My grandparents and Keisan left the room and I locked the door after them. I couldn't believe what was happening. Was I really going to die in a few days? I turned on the TV to try to take my mind off everything and eventually fell asleep. I was awakened around 1 a.m. by a tapping sound on the window. It's probably just a tree or something, I told myself. Then came a knock on the door and I heard my grandpa's voice. Are you okay in there? If you're scared, I can come keep you company. Hearing his voice was such a relief that without thinking, I rushed over to the door. But something didn't feel right. I looked at the bowls of salt in the room. All 4 of them had turned black. And then I heard the sound again. The tapping on the window continued. I knelt in front of the Buddha and began to pray. I was so terrified and caught up in my chanting that I didn't realize the sounds had stopped. I checked my watch. It was 7:30 a.m. Carefully, I opened the door and ran to my grandparents. We all got in a van and headed straight for the airport. Apparently, there were others who had escaped the grasp of Hachisaku-sama as long as they never stepped foot in Japan again. So 2 years ago, when my grandpa got sick, he refused to let me visit him. He even left strict instructions in his will to not let me attend his funeral. I couldn't believe that this creature prevented me from saying goodbye to him. So when my grandma called a few days ago to tell me she had been diagnosed with cancer, I wasn't gonna let her stop me from visiting. It's been 10 years, Grandma, and nothing has happened to me. We don't even know if this thing is real. I'm not gonna let it stop me from seeing you. If you say so, dear. I love you, Grandma. I'll see you soon.